Alright guys, so I'm going to be showing you how to make a real-time multiplayer game in Unity, and if you want to see what exactly I'm doing in my game, I put it in the last tutorial. It's basically just a Pong game, and you can follow along. I am going to copy and paste the scripts in the description, and also a lot of this is in the documentation on the Google Play Services plugin. If you go under real-time multiplayer, it's all in there. So first we start off just making a script, and you add all of this stuff I have highlighted at the top, and then under the start you add all of this, which is basically you're making it multiplayer, these first few lines, and then social.localuser.authenticate, that's trying to sign you in. So we're going to try and sign you in right at the start, and then we're going to create quick game and create with invitation screen. This is basically right off of the documentation. It's minimum 1 players, max 1 players, which means you're playing with one other person, and that's about it. Game type doesn't really matter because it's just Pong, it's just one game. And then if you go back to the first thing we did, the real-time multiplayer listener, if you right-click and click implement interface or something like that, something along the lines of that, it'll add all of these at the bottom of your script. And then we're going to add a sign-in button, which is basically the same as what we put in the start. And then we'll go back to the top. We have a sign-in button, a random players button, a friends button, main canvas, and play canvas. And you can see what we want to be true or false. And I just put them all as game objects, but these are actually buttons: a sign-in button, random players button, friends button. But I just put them as game objects because we're not using any like button functions or anything, so it doesn't matter. And then if you go back to the bottom of the start, this is where we're trying to sign them in right off the bat under the start. So if success equals true, we want sign in to equal false because you're already signed in, so we don't need a button to tell you to sign in. And then the other way around, for if it's not a success, we do want the sign in button because we need to sign in. And then that's gonna be exactly the same on the sign in button. Okay, so under create quick game, and under create with invitation screen, we're gonna disable the main canvas and enable the play canvas. Okay, now we're gonna have loading text, and we're gonna add this to the top. We're just gonna disable it at the start. Okay, if you go to the very bottom where all of this, where we implemented all this stuff, so on room setup progress, the loading text will equal the progress. So it should equal. Now this doesn't work like it should. It should go like 0 to 100, and but that doesn't work. It skips to 20, and then it basically goes to 100, I think, and just skips straight to it. But it's good for when you're testing. I wouldn't do that during if you're planning on actually building it. I wouldn't put that in. I just have like a text that says waiting for other players, if you know it's gonna work. But if you're testing, you want to see the numbers going up. And then on room connected, we don't want the loading text there anymore, so we're just gonna put it as nothing. Okay, under create quick game and create with invitation screen, loading.enabled equals true because that's when we need to start loading. So okay, here we add a bunch of stuff. game object player 0 and player 0 text, and then player 1, and then player 1 text, and then player. And then in the start, we just put the text to nothing. And we'll work with that later. And now we need a ball, and we're gonna set the ball to false. Okay, I'm gonna try to explain this as best I can, as quickly as I can. So participant myself equals myself, obviously, get self. And then you're gonna list the participants, and you just get the connected participants. And then you're gonna put the player 0 text to participant 0 display name, and same for player 1. And then you're gonna set the ball to true. You need the ball to be true on both of them, obviously. And then if myself.participant ID equals participant 0, that means you're the first player, you're player 0. So we're gonna set player to 0, and then we're gonna enable the ball script, which that might be called something else. I'd just call it ball script. If you're working with my project, then yeah, I'd just call it ball script. And then if you're not, then you're obviously player 1, and you don't want the ball script to happen because the ball is going to be hitting things, and we want that to be called on player 0, and then player 0 will send that information to the second player. We don't want them to be doing them at the same time on the same script. Okay, now we need a win-loss text. I mean, this is a text. I just put it as a game object. We're not going to be editing the text or anything. We're just going to be enabling and disabling it. So we set it to false in the start. Okay, so this is thinking ahead. We have to think ahead here. So if we hit the left border, that means player 0 loses because the ball went behind the paddle. And if we hit the right border, that means player 0 wins. So if you're player 0, then you lose if it hits the left one, and you win if it hits the right one. And then yeah, if you're not player 0, then the opposite. Okay, a main menu button here, and so this will put you back to the main menu, and we don't need sign in to be true anymore because you're already signed in if you can make it to the main menu button. Okay, and then we're gonna call main menu on pretty much anything where you leave the room. And now we're gonna make a ball script, and for this we have a private script, main script, which is the script we were just working with. Script equals gameObject.find, and the name of the game object, which in the hierarchy I called it script, and then get component, whatever the name of the script is. And then we have a private rigid body equals whatever game object this is attached to, rigid body 2D. And then the velocity on the start, we're gonna put it to -100. Okay, I'm trying to make this as big as it can without going on the next line, because I hate looking at it going on multiple lines for like the same line of code, but it's not really working out that well. But all the scripts will be in the description. This is basically saying if you hit an object and it's named player 0, then go the other way, and or go up and down depending on where the ball is compared to where the paddle is, and vice versa. You can look at all this, and if you hit the left border, then we're gonna call the left hit on the main script, and same for the right border. Okay, so I zoomed in on just the first part of this on the update. This is on the main script. We're not on the ball script anymore. So we're done with the ball script. And so if player equals player 0, this is where we're sending information. So I want you to understand this just right off the bat, right off the first one. Instead of looking at all three that we're going to be doing, we're just going to look at the first one and try and understand this. So string data. So the first part of the string is ball. Then there's a colon. Then ball.transform.position.x. Then there's a colon. And then there's the y. And so that's just a string. And then this is a byte array. This is array of bytes. And we're just getting the bytes data, which is the string we just made. And then we're sending the message to everyone. And is it reliable? No, it's not reliable, which is false. And then we're sending byte data. Okay, now we're looking at all three of them, the three things we'll be doing. So if you're player 0, you're sending the ball information, the ball transform here, and then also the player information. So it's basically the same thing. The names don't matter. Like if you look under this, player 0 data and player 0 data array, those names don't really matter as long as they match up in the same position as the ball one. And then yeah, if you're player 1, then you're sending the player 1 transform so the other players can see. Okay, now we're sending more information. Under left hit, we're gonna say 0 lose because the 0 lost. Player 0 lost, and you're only sending this if you're player 0 because player 0 has the ball script. And so yeah, you're just sending this one string. That's all you're sending. 0 lost. That's all you're sending. Okay, if you look, I didn't get a screenshot of the right hit, but you're just gonna send 0 win instead of 0 lost. And that's about it. You can look in the description to see exactly what I wrote. Now we go under on real-time message received. Okay, so on real-time message received, we're just going to put position equals the data, which is right there. The data from, if you look on real-time message received, is reliable, sender ID, and then data. That's where we're getting data from. And then a string array, raw. This is where, so an array of strings, this is going to be string number 1 is going to be something, and then it's going to get rid of the colon that we put in when we were sending the information. It's going to get rid of that colon and make whatever's next a new string. So if you look at what we sent, it's going to be like ball. The first string is going to say ball, and then the second string is going to say whatever the X position is, and the third string is going to be the Y position. So we're just sending them as 3 different strings. Okay, and now if we look into this, if it's reliable, or if it's not reliable actually. So this isn't reliable right here. If it's not reliable and raw, which is above right there, 0, the first string in raw is ball, then we're gonna put ball.transform.position equals vector2, and this converts it to a float. So system.convert.toSingle raw 1, which is the X, that's gonna convert it to a float, and then you do the same for 2. Okay, and then we're basically doing the same thing to the player 0 and player 1. So that's why we send the name. So the first string is going to be the name, and then the X, and then the Y. That's why we do that, so we know what we're receiving, what messages we're receiving. Okay, this is right under what we were just writing. So if it's not reliable, the else, that's what it's from. So this this is reliable. Because right above it says is not reliable, so this is reliable right here. So if raw 0, oh, I forgot to state this, it's true, it is reliable when we're sending left hit or right hit. So if you receive a message that says 0 win, that means player 0 won, then right hit is going to be called on this player, on everybody else basically, and then the same for 0 loss. Okay, so here is just a little thing I wrote to move the player. So this was just going to move the player up and down, and this is under a I'll explain this in a second. It's under a okay, so I'll show you what we're working with real quick. So we have the up button and the down button, and they both take up about half of the screen. So if you're touching on the top half, you'll be moving upward, and if you're touching on the bottom half, you'll be moving downward. And we do this by this still has a button on it. If you can see, it's chopped off, but on click right there, that's the button. Right there, so it has a button on it still, but we add a event trigger so that on the pointer down, you'll be moving. This is on the up button, it's going to be the opposite on the down button, but on pointer down, main script up is called, and then pointer up, when you release the button, basically you're going to set the velocity to 0. Okay, so this is probably worth noting. If you look in the hierarchy, it says left border, right border, top border, bottom border, and those names have to be exact, because in the ball script, they're actually called that. So you have to make sure the game object in the script matches what it says in the hierarchy. Because when you hit the left border, it should call left hit on the script. But this should be able to be figured out by people that know what they're doing. And actually, I'd recommend just looking at my at the scripts I'm using and working on your own project. Not maybe you can make your own Pong game, but make it a little different from mine, just so you know what you're doing instead of copy and pasting exactly what I'm doing. And I hope this helps some people. I'll probably add, I'll show it working on 2 different devices.